Hi everybody. I just wanted to provide a little bit of guidance for week 8 and say hello again. It's been wonderful to hear everybody's comments and to see everybody's critiques of the technologies. It's been really exciting. So just a little bit of a reflection on the UDL section of our course. So we just finished up, we first started with TPAC, we went into developing some technologies, and then we went into developing more pedagogical understanding of how to apply technologies in certain contexts with classrooms, and that was really about UDL. And we focused on UDL because it's how we address issues of diversity and equity with technology-enhanced instruction. And these are guidelines that the field has come up with in terms of how to support access to technologies, to content, to rich learning experiences for all learners. And so many of you picked up on that and have had a wonderful discussion about UDL. And I think a part of a wonderful discussion is also being very critical of not just taking everything at face value. And I think a lot of you have applied your understanding of UDL to the UDL website. I put a little picture in there. Yeah, a lot of their examples and resources, even on their Digo site, are somewhat difficult to find, and links are broken, and etc. But of course, nothing is perfect, and to me that demonstrates that you guys are doing a wonderful job of being able to critique technologies, being able to critique instruction, so that we can make sure that all learners are able to access rich content. Building upon that, so many of you have such wonderful classroom experience, and you really are experts in how to differentiate, how to provide different types of instruction for all learners, so that everybody can learn how to flex their brain muscles in different ways. But I just want you to sort of begin to start thinking of putting on this other hat. So putting on the hat that you are sort of aspiring to be in this program. I know many of you are in the LMS program. Many of you are looking to be ITRTs or tech specialists. Others of you are looking for jobs out in industry. And so just start to think about, so now not as the teacher or the person who's directly providing this to students, but as somebody who is going to be working with other teachers or a diverse amount of learners, or providing training for people. So do all teachers or the others that you're going to be working with have this type of rich experience or background to draw from? And I would bet, knowing of myself when I was a novice first year to third year teacher, I really didn't have this type of understanding. And everybody's coming out with methods courses and teacher education programs. Many of them are great, but many of them don't have time to focus on these types of providing these types of rich experiences for students. And so just starting to think about transitioning into a role as an LMS or an ITRT or another type of tech leader. Your job is really going to be facilitating other people's implementation or selection of technologies, and really starting to think of how can you help how can you help teachers or other instructors follow these types of guidelines in their own practice. And some of them, might take something, pick it up, and make this fantastic lesson or this fantastic training around it. But others might need more help. And so that brings us to our next assignment, which is your strategy assignment. And the goal for this assignment is for you to start thinking, once again, put on that hat, that new hat, and develop strategies for implementing instructional technologies in real life contexts. And as part of that, we want you to, now that you've got TPAC and UDL under your belt, apply your understanding of that and how you are going to be able to help people implement instructional technologies. And so for people that are in the LMS or looking to be ITRTs or those types of people, you really want to focus on how are you going to work with teachers or trainers, for those of you out in industry, to implement technologies in a collaborative manner. So with another teacher, with a student who comes into the library. And so with that, you probably want to address the AASL standards and the Virginia standards. And so the AASL standards for learning are in resources, or also linked to the file in the assignment that's open, as well as the guidelines for school library programs, just some general guidelines to sort of help you start thinking about your strategies. How to incorporate some of these guidelines, or how to keep continually refining what you're doing in order to strive to meet some of these guidelines. As well as for those of you looking to be instructional personnel or others, you can look at the Virginia technology standards for instructional personnel and students. And so I'm going to briefly link out over there and switch out. So here are the outline of the guidelines for school library programs from the AASL website. And there's a link on Collab for the technologies, the 10 best technologies, and you can find it over through here or through other links in the assignment. And here are the Virginia standards for students and instructional personnel. So here are the tech standards of learning for students, and then here are the tech standards for instructional personnel. You can see here, to ensure that teachers and educators are able to harness the power of technology to engage students. So it's really taking that one step removed. I also want to show you an example statement that's available on Collab. And so this is something that you can either use as a template, or you are, of course, feel free to do something that works for you in your context. But here is an example technology statement, or a technology strategy with a personal statement up in front for what you look forward to be able to do. Sorry, I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. How you envision yourself in your context, and then an overview. And here's a nice little graphic for identify, analyze, support, and evaluate, and have all of this be iterative. In terms of identifying, first of all, identify targeted learning objectives and possible technologies to help meet the objectives. This involves ... You could do a bulleted list, you could do a checklist, something to help you remember or consider various options. Number 2, analyze and act. Carefully analyze each possibility. So here is how you can address TPAC, making sure the technology makes the content more accessible and understandable, align with good pedagogy, and how difficult is the technology to implement. And then also maybe some bullets or some checklists in terms of UDL. What is the context? Who are you looking at? What are the learners? How you might start thinking about supporting the teachers and students using the technology, and how you're going to evaluate it. So this is just a basic structure for what you might start thinking of in terms of a strategy. So going back, and I will go ahead and start this back up. So for the preview for the next couple weeks, it's going to be a little bit lighter. So you are going to, after you come up with your strategy this week, you can apply your strategy to 2 cases. You can. I mean, you will apply your strategy, thank you, to 2 cases for the next week due on 10/20, and or starting to 10/20. And then revise your strategy statement beginning on 10/27. And so each week, so this week you're going to be coming up with your strategy statement. the next week you're going to read 2 of your students' cases and apply your strategy. You might need to read a couple more to see what might be most fitting for you or most interesting to you. And then create a little bit of a document, a narrative of how you would tackle this given your strategy, and then use those 2 cases to revise your strategy statement. And this is really a good exercise for those of you who might be interviewing for new jobs, because obviously they're going to ask you a lot of times you want to see, well, can you give me an example of how you would facilitate technology enhanced instruction, or how you would facilitate the use of instructional technologies for diverse learners, right? So these are some pretty standard interview questions that you might encounter. And so this is really, for those of you who are on the job market or looking perhaps to change roles, a nice exercise for you to be able to come up with some answers on the dot for how you would go about doing this, and incorporate theory such as TPAC, as well as guidelines such as the AASL standards, the Virginia standards, and guidelines for UDL. So after you do that, you probably, during that exercise, you might say, oh, you know what, I really needed to be more specific about X, Y, and Z. I really needed to think about the context and the learners in a different way, or slightly different. I wanted to include a few more checkpoints. So then the week after you apply your strategy to 2 cases, you're going to revise your strategy. So that might be adding a couple bullets here and there. It might be tweaking a checklist, but that is what's going to be due the week following. So that's the preview for the next week's. And then after that is when we start working on your project, your big project, final project for the class, where you put everything together. And so we'll hit on that in a few weeks with a proposal due. One thing I did want to mention, and I will put this as, I will construct the PowerPoint. Maybe this will keep you guys from falling asleep at this point, but one thing I did want to mention was in terms of how to turn in the assignments. I wanted to make it as flexible and as easy for you as possible because I know many of you are teaching and have a lot of other things on your plate. So if it's easiest for you to create a doc file, I think that would be easiest for me. Just feel free to attach the doc file to the assignment and turn in the assignment. If you really like building out your website, feel free to put this on your website and then put a link to it in your in the assignment page. But go ahead and please turn in your assignments through the assignments tab in Collab, and that way it can all be in one place. Just in case there is any confusion. I know a few of you have had confusion on where to turn things in. I'm trying to be flexible so that you can, so it can be easiest for you, but I think for everybody, if we just turn it in through the assignments tab, that'll make everybody's life easier. As always, please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me. And thank you for responding 4 times for the final presentations. It looks like it's going to be, we'll offer sometime at night for people to give a synchronous virtual face-to-face presentation to everyone. And I'll put in some office hours during the evenings and weekends for during the project, during the final project time, so that if you have any questions, I'll be around. And you can reach me instantaneously, synchronously. But otherwise, I hope everyone is doing wonderfully. The weather is wonderful here in Charlottesville, and I hope to hear from you soon. Okay, thank you so much.